let's get into the spoiler cast here. We're gonna do a spoiler segment, not a full spoiler cast. So this is your fair warning right now. There will be timestamps on this video, and I'll try to put them in the podcast description as well. So if you don't want spoilers, just skip ahead to the Jason's Vegetables or the Random Rant, whatever timestamps next.
Yeah, well, it'll be clear. We'll make it clear.
Yeah.
And to be clear, now, these are spoilers for everything Final Fantasy VII related. Full stop. I don't know what I'm going to get into, but I'm not going to hold back on whatever that is.
So then we just lost the only two people that are going to listen to this, which are Josh and Sean.
Yeah, but hopefully we get people with the tags and the hashes, and I sound like an idiot, an old man right now. But you know
the tags and the hash. I might put this out there as a separate like YouTube segment.
That'd be fine. We could break it out.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us about Final Fantasy VII OG, Jason, because you played that on PC.
So what do you want to know? Do you want to know the story? Do you want to know my experience with it? Or both?
Let's hear experience first, and then you can just kind of weave in the story as you see fit.
Okay. Well, so one thing I will say is that I bought it on Steam, and I played it with an Xbox One controller. So that's something to keep in mind, because I had some technical difficulties getting that controller to work. And if you go check out the YouTube video, there's like a 20-second little cut video where at the beginning, I do the whole gameplay, but you can see what I'm talking about with the technical difficulties. But what it amounts to, if you want to play it, is you have to start the game with the controller plugged in, but you can't use the controller to enter a new game. You have to press X on the keyboard. And then once you're in the game, the controller, you can play with the controller. It's real dumb. So there's that. So that was my first little intro. But yeah, so I'm going to get everything wrong about this because I tried really hard to pay attention. But again, you keep making me play games where I have to read, and that's hard for me. So I am an ex-soldier, and I jump off a train, and I'm immediately just thrown into a situation where I don't really know what's going on. But this big dude who Barrett?
Barrett.
He says to me, "Hey, new guy, let's go." And he starts running in a direction. And so I just assume I'm supposed to follow him. And then I encounter some enemy soldiers, which is your first encounter. It's within the first 20 seconds that you play in. And you get a little taste of the battle system, but you're still not really sure what's going on. But like I said, you get a little, my first initial thing is the only combat system like this that I have to draw on is Pokemon. So I'm immediately okay, pick my attack, pick the guy I want to hit. Okay, cool. It's my reflexes kick in. But there's definitely more to it than that, because you see this little timer bar going, and you're oh, I can't attack yet. Oh, the timer bar. And then you're okay, I'm kind of getting this. And so you go in and you are trying to take down this Maku reactor, and you get to name your character, which I found interesting because I don't think in the remake you'd get to name anybody.
No, that's a holdover. At the time it was a holdover for the series. You were able to name every main character, so the lead and then all your party members, all the way up until Final Fantasy. So the last one you could do it was Final Fantasy X. So you could rename Tidus and Waka and all those other characters. I think it was 12 when they finally, especially because they had full voice acting. They had that too, but in 12 they were no, we're going to let the names these are the names of the characters so that we can actually say their names. Oh wait, you could only name the main character in Final Fantasy X. That was my mistake. Anyway.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I thought that was a little interesting, but I kept everybody named what they were named because I knew that when you and I talked about it, I'd get lost if I renamed them. So then you go in, and it is the same kind of section that was the demo of the remake, where you're trying to blow up the first Maku reactor. And it actually went a lot faster. So you can kind of see the time stretch even in that demo section with how long that demo took versus how long it takes in this game.
Yeah, you played a total of 44 minutes, I think I saw at the end.
No, I played almost an hour. I think I played 50 4 minutes or
but
something.
you
like
got
that.
past the scorpion, and the scorpion in the remake is about 45 minutes by itself.
Oh, I know.
To get to the same part in remake, you would have had to play like another hour and a half.
Right. And so that was the interesting thing of having played the demo section and then playing this, and you kind of do see those differences, albeit I did it in the wrong order, but yeah, I mean, for what it was, I honestly, I would have been absolutely blown away by this game if I had played it in 97 or even, 2000 when I was a little probably old enough to actually enjoy it. Because 97 I would have been 8, so probably a little early to have really enjoyed that game.
Yeah, maybe. I didn't play it until I was somewhere in middle school, so...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like 2000, 2001 would have been like prime. I still would have been blown away by it, to be honest.
I was. I don't know why, but I was. I was like, this speaks to me.
It was great. Now, what I will say is, in retrospect, Cloud is a whiny little whiner.
It comes off as whiny. When it's just the text, it's pretty much interpreted as, like, dude, you're here for, like, you want to be here to get paid. Like, stop whining about your job that you literally just started.
Yeah, and it's so annoying. So okay. Anyway, you blow up the Mako reactor, you escape on the train, and then you go out to your hideout, where you kind of rendezvous with the team, and it looks like some weird halfway house where the Lost Boys live, and there's like, I guess Tifa seems like the mom of the group, even though she's...
It's kind of a pretty good assessment of what's going on.
So yeah, and then so she's Barrett. So I didn't realize this in the demo, but Tifa is Cloud's childhood friend, but she's Barrett's wife. But you don't really get along with Barrett, and I get why.
She is not Barrett's wife. She is Cloud's childhood friend. She is not Barrett's wife.
Weird.
That's so funny. I did not pick up on that you thought that during the Let's Play.
Oh, that's so weird. See, I thought Tifa and Barrett had a child, and that was Marlene.
No, Marlene, we'll get to this. Well, Marlene is Barrett's child, but it's adopted. Like, it's she's a child of a friend of his who died. And so he took her in because his wife would, like, they had nobody. So now they have each other.
That even more makes my assessment correct that she's Wendy in this weird scenario.
In the Peter Pan analogy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, I'm at this hideout and everybody's talking down to me, and I'm like, I don't care about Avalanche, which is like what we work for, I guess. I don't care about Avalanche, and I don't care about Soldier, and I don't care about this world, man. And I'm just like, shut up, Cloud. You're so annoying. You know what? I wish I could be Barrett so I could slap you. And that's as far as I got. And then I was like, I gotta save and be done with this.
So, let's talk about the Scorpion boss.
Yes.
Had a little trouble there. What did Barrett or Cloud, I think it was Cloud technically, what did Cloud tell you to do when the tail was up?
He told me to attack when the tail was up.
And what did you do, Jason?
I don't know, because I don't know how to time attacks, because I just pick it and then it just does it whenever it's my turn.
Did you notice when the tail was up or down?
Not really. It was kind of cut off.
Really? Interesting.
I don't know. That's how I felt.
That's how you felt. Well, if you're paying attention and it's not cut off, it's pretty clear when the tail's like basically like parallel to the ground, or it's like up, curved, ready to strike. And you're right. Cloud did say attack while the tail is up. It's going to fire a laser. Except that's a typo. You are not supposed to attack when the tail is up. And that's your fault. But you're certainly not the first, and you'll probably not be the last person to like take that simple cue in tutorial and be like, oh, okay. And then die because of it. Like, because it's a brutal attack for someone who has no cure magic yet and only like 8 or 9 potions to their name.
Okay, so you're not... I'm watching it right now. Mm-hmm. It is really... I feel like the tail's up the whole time. Oh, no, there... It kind of goes down. It's really hard to tell what up is and what down is.
It takes a while to go down if you're wailing on it while it's up. Because basically, the way the active time battle system works is, triggers won't occur while actions are being taken. So, like, while the attack animation is happening, no one's, like, meter is going up or down. And so it'll feel like the tail's up a lot longer, and you're getting like hammered on even more, obviously, if you're attacking it while the tail is up. So that was a little tidbit that I found very amusing, because again, it's just kind of one of those rites of passage. If you've never heard the meme about the typo, or just didn't figure it out when you're playing, because why would you? You're just trying to do what the game's telling you to do.
That is super interesting. Yeah, no, I definitely had never heard that before. So that's really funny in retrospect. And but I did not die at this.
No, you didn't. You skated by. You used all your potions. I think anyway.
I did.
But one of them maybe.
Yep.
Because I was like, oh, he's dead. There's no way he's getting out of this. But you made it, and you were surprised too. Like, what's happening? Oh, I won. Okay, that's it.
It was really weird because he died. I didn't attack him. He just like stood there and died.
No, you did. It's just there was a huge gap while it triggered the death phase. There was just like nothing happened, and then he just kind of like blew up into the red polygons, which is how all enemies die in this game.
So strange.
Did you get a chance to like? It didn't like open up the equipment and materia stuff for you, did it?
No. So Barrett gave me materia. He was like, "Here, I think you should probably hold on to the materia if you can show me how to use it later." And he handed it to me, but I didn't actually get to see what that did at all.
Gotcha. Okay. Because that's a pretty big part of it, but the tutorial, like somebody I think at some point shows you, hey, do you want me to show you how to use materia in like classic, 90s game style, and then they walk you through like a scripted tutorial.
Gotcha.
So overall, you didn't hate it.
No.
For somebody who doesn't usually play old JRPGs.
Yeah, I would say that's a really good summary of my thoughts on it. It's like I said, I think for what it is, it was an amazing game, and it doesn't hold. I mean, is it fair to say it doesn't really hold up? I mean,
I would disagree strongly. You can, and I would understand where you're coming from, but I would not. I would agree that it does hold up.
It just needs a little bit of refinement. It didn't even need the remake to make me happy. I would have been happy with like I'm not usually one to care about the graphics, but the textures were so bad and hard to distinguish between that, like, when I was in that section where you have to climb ladders down to get into the Maku reactor, I couldn't figure out how to line myself up with the ladder to jump onto it because it just looked so bad. And again, I'm never a fan of random encounters, so that was really, like, I hated that. I kind of get why they did it, because the environments are so small that if you had other characters on screen, I feel like there might not even be room for them. And
I mean, that was a time where nobody didn't do random encounters. If you did a turn-based JRPG, nobody did on screen except like, I think Chrono Trigger was one of the few people who did it that early, and they were one of the only people who did it for a really long time. Now I'm sure there's some like RPG historian out there who could list off a bunch of games that only a few people have played, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
To your graphics comment, there are mods that like sharpen stuff up, the character models specifically. The backgrounds are like pre-rendered. And you can see that they look obviously way better than anybody that can actually move. But yeah, there's some mods out there that make it look, maybe not PS2 levels, but certainly not as early PS1.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard for me to judge a game like this, having not really played a lot of them over the years. So I can't not. Yeah, to the opposite of that, because I'm so used to them, I can't not see the flaws, I guess, if you want to call them flaws, because I mean it is old, and they weren't flaws at the time, so it feels wrong to call them flaws now. To be fair. And you made a mention of this at the end, like, what it feels like to have more than two people in your party. The pace of combat picks up quite a bit as you get further in. I assumed that because like there would be periods where I was just waiting for both of my characters' time meters to tick back up, and we were just like standing there awkwardly looking at each other. And then I was like, well, if I had 4 people, then I would be doing other stuff. So
yeah. You might like the Switch version because it comes with those features where you just like you click the sticks or you press pause and you hit like R2 or something, and it either speeds it up to ×3, or it fills your limit break all the way, or it makes you like invincible, like those kinds of like little cheaty things. And it might be just enough to make you want to play without turning you away because it's too easy. I don't know.
But then I can't. Then I can't record it.
Well, you're not going to record it if you keep playing it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Exactly.
So talk to me about Limit Break and the difference between Limit Break in the original versus the remake, because from what I could tell, the way the Limit Break thing worked, at least as the attacker on offense, is like once you got hit enough, it would charge up and then you could unleash a pretty powerful attack.
That's pretty much the same as it was in the remake, actually.
Okay.
The idea was that, I don't know, I mean, obviously if you use it, the bar gets reset. I don't know, like if you reach a certain chapter in the remake, it like resets the bar behind the scenes. But when you go through an area that has a lot of combat, it would persist. And then obviously in boss fights is usually when you're going to see it go up the most because you're taking the most damage in a boss fight. But it's the same concept. The Limit Break builds up, you use it. It's one of your most powerful attacks for a reason. Some of people's Limit Breaks, so you use two of them. You'd use one of Cloud's and one of Barrett's. Barrett's Limit Break in the original is the same as it is in this one, or in the remake. And then Cloud's Limit Break is actually one of your basic skill moves. And then they repurpose some people's Limit Breaks as just regular moves, and then some of them are still Limit Breaks, or they give them new ones, etc.
Interesting. It is interesting to see these little tweaks that they made that make such what I feel like a big difference, because the combat system in the remake is so refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm like, I want that combat system with this story. It kind of makes me want to play the remake in a way.
The remake still has that story.
That's what I'm saying. But then at the same time, it's like, it's such a small chunk, it seems like. But talk to me about it, like, I've kind of gone through the extent of what I have to say about the small section I played, but talk to me about your experience and your thoughts on the remake.
So I finished it. The night we finished recording, so that was technically my birthday at that point. I actually finished 2 games that night.
That's impressive.
Did I finish both Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy in the same night? That sounds crazy. Anyway, I definitely rolled credits on Final Fantasy VII Remake in the wee hours of the morning on May 13th, 2020. And I had some mixed feelings about it that night. I have since listened to like 4 different spoiler casts from my favorite, podcasters and influencers, etc. I don't like using the word influencers. Makes it sound like they're manipulating me. But overall, I'm going to say this at the top. I did like it. I didn't love it. It's not my favorite game ever. I don't even think I like it more than the original yet. Like, we'll see how the rest of this series pans out if they ever actually finish it. But this was a really amazing endeavor. And this team should be really proud of what they did, because they did something I never, ever would have dreamed someone could do, which was make a really good game that doesn't lose or change, the heart of what the original was. I mean, there are changes, and they're not the same game. They're also like 20 plus years apart. So obviously, like, it was always going to be vastly different. And yet at the same time, it feels like coming home. It's like, wow, this is so familiar. How did they do this? Like, everyone loved Resident Evil 2. They thought that was the best remake that anyone's ever made, and it probably was at the time. And then a little over a year later, Square comes in and just one-ups them in every single way. Every single way. And I really liked Resident Evil 2. I played it, I finished it, I thought it was a great game. But as far as a remaking, a remake or remastering the original, Final Fantasy VII beats it hands down.
It's always, but to your point, it is always really impressive when studios, media, entertainment industry can manage to take some source material and recreate, like you said, the heart of it. And it's interesting because, like, I heard Gary Whitta made this comment about the new DuckTales series on Netflix. He's like, they basically took the series and they rebooted it and made it what you remember it being. But if you go back and watch the original, that's actually not how it was. And I thought it was an interesting concept of like making something what you remember it being instead of what it actually was.
Yeah, and in this case, that it's a pretty good analogy. It's not quite the same because of just how different it is. A cartoon is a cartoon, and obviously production values go up, etc. But I mean, there's these games are just too different to be in that camp exactly. But
right.
It comes as close to that feeling playing it for the first, like the first 3 to 5 hours of this game are some of my favorite 3 to 5 hours in gaming in the last few years, like hands down. Like the opening demo, it's not just the demo, that is just the opening 45 minutes of the game, you know, where the demo ends is slightly changed because it's like, okay, and then pre-order the game, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you fight the Scorpion boss, you escape the reactor, it blows up, and you, like, I think it ends with you just, you know, running through some rubble with the Avalanche team, and that's just where the game picks up, basically. But let's see. I got a lot of thoughts. I jotted them down, trying to organize them right now. But yeah, I finished this game, and I was a little skeptical. And a nugget of wisdom I heard, because I was really worried. I was like, I have no idea how they're going to do this again, and then how they're going to finish it, and how it's not going to take 15 plus years. And even though the ending was a little weird, the fact that myself and everybody else who's played it for the most part enjoyed like 95% of this game, it would be really bizarre if they somehow messed it up. You know, like you can't accidentally make such a great game. I mean, maybe they caught the lightning in a bottle. I don't know. But to think that the second one and the third one, and maybe even the fourth and fifth one, if they actually go that crazy far, would be bad, would be like, it literally just seems like an impossibility. So many things would have to go wrong. The game would just have to not come out, basically, for it to be a failure. And even then, I don't know how much of a failure that would be. Because this one was really good and ends in kind of a way that's like, oh, well, all right, we could just kind of leave it at that, and that's that.
So talk to me about story beats, because this is a spoiler cast. Like, it sounds like coming out of the demo section, that was like almost like your highest high. Maybe not for the whole game, but you're super, super amped about the game. I would say for like the first how many hours, and then at what point, talk me through those story beats, and then at what point did it downturn and why?
Okay, so yeah, the demo ends just after the reactor blows up, basically where you got to, and you got just a little bit farther, and then beat for beat, you know, you escape through the city, through the rubble, and you make your way to the bar, Seventh Heaven, in the Sector 7 slums where you meet Tifa. And there's not a lot different from the original at that point up until...
Well, hold on. I have a question about the bar.
Yeah.
So in the original, when they're about to head off to the second reactor in Midgar, they just like, Marlene, hold the fort down. You're going to be the bartender in this really super slummy area. Do they do the same thing? They leave like a 7-year-old girl alone to run a bar by herself?
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice.
I want who went and... So the first major change that happens is there's a lot of new stuff that happens between getting to the bar and then going on the second reactor run. That's where you get to do your first set of side quests. Tifa walks you around the town, and so it's a slum, but it's not like a bad neighborhood. It's just a bunch of poor people who live together. You know, they're the people who've been cast aside by society, and they've had to make do in the rubble that is the older part of the city instead of getting to live on the, you know, fancy plate that they all live underneath. And there's this new character, and she's like this old woman tenant that like runs the apartments that Cloud stays in, and she keeps making like old lady comments about how Cloud needs to be careful around breaking Tifa's heart, or she'll do this and that. And she's got like a broom for a head, and it's hilarious. And it's these little tiny character additions that are the best parts of this, where they added stuff that didn't exist, but doesn't do anything to take away from what did exist. So Jesse's a character, Wedge is a character, and Biggs are a character. They're the three people that are under Barrett in Avalanche, and they have a couple one-liners in the thing, and you can talk to them in between other scenes, and they, again, just a couple one-liners, but they flesh them out so much, especially Jesse. Jesse is easily the best new thing about this game, and one of the best characters in the entire thing. And it's amazing that they're able to do that with somebody, because they take a nobody, because that's essentially what she's just a nobody. She has no real personality. She's like kind of their more tech-oriented person. She makes the bomb that blows up the reactors, and that's about it. And they take this nobody and they make her an immediate fan favorite, which is difficult because she's also this third love interest. So there's already a love triangle with Aerith.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Go ahead.
How does that all play out, given that Jesse's so into Cloud, but then like he has got this other thing going with his childhood friend Tifa?
We'll get there in a bit.
Okay.
But just know that exactly there's this childhood friend Tifa. Eventually you meet another chick called Aerith who has the total hots for Cloud. And there's this girl named Jessie who's probably, she's the first girl you meet in this game. And if you've never played Final Fantasy VII, she's just coming on to you real hard. And you're like, oh, I guess this is the love interest. Nope. Oh, here's this other chick. Oh, here's a third chick. And so Cloud's got 3 women who want him. And yet at the same time, Jessie doesn't like step over Tifa's character. She doesn't step over Aerith's character as far as like being too similar to one or the other. She's a third person who is completely different and entertaining, and like, you know, as far as like, oh, who do I want Cloud to be with? Not that it's a choice, but like if I could pick, you know, they've made it difficult. Like, oh, these are all like great people, and then they have their strengths and, you know, some of them weaknesses, but like it's amazing that they were able to do that with somebody who was nobody and squeeze them in so effortlessly, like they've been there the whole time.
Do you think they'll add like a rose ceremony DLC where you get to give roses to two of the 3?
You know, there is a thing in the original. It's not a rose ceremony, but essentially based on choices you made, you go on this little date, and it can be either it can be Tifa, Barrett, or Aerith, or maybe even Red 13, who is a dog, tiger, cat man thing.
Ooh, that sounds right up your alley, Mr. Hatoful boyfriend.
Hatoful boyfriend. Exactly. I love me some animals. But I don't know how they're going to handle something like that in the future iterations. But anyway, so that's the first time I got off track talking about Jessie because she's amazing.
It's okay.
But so between the 2 Mako reactor runs is when they add the new stuff, where they add like running around the slums and kind of building up Midgar and the characters, and that this is a real place with real people, and that's important. We'll get to that in a bit, because you need to know why Tifa and Barrett are fighting so hard, and it's the people they've come to know and they've come to love, and they call friends and they call family, because they're a tight-knit community, and they're being oppressed by the Shinra Corporation, who's also they're not just a corporation who loves money and, you know, and they're oppressing poor people. They're also literally destroying the planet as they suck out the Mako. So you do all those things and you go on another reactor run. Jessie gets hurt at one point. There's this whole long side quest where you do something with Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie as Cloud. You leave Tifa and Barrett behind because they're doing something else. And she gets hurt at some point. Tifa steps in and she's like, okay, I'm going to go. And Jessie has to stay there and can't do anything. And that's where we get to the part that you stopped at. Let's see.
So yeah, so then tell me, because this, obviously I didn't go any further, I don't know what happens next. Is this the point at which you thought the pacing was a little off, or? No,
that hasn't happened for a while. So the pacing for me personally, I'm going to have to skip some story stuff because we'll be here for literally 4 hours.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, this is a spoiler section, not an entire spoiler cast. But
right. So you go through the motions at that point. There might be a few new things here or there. You blow up the second reactor, except it turns out like Shinra's in the know. The president shows up and he's like, I've been pulling these strings, basically. And something happens and Cloud falls. He falls off a reactor. And then he falls all the way into the slums, which is an inhumanly far distance to fall. Like we're talking skyscraper levels. And he falls through a church into a thing of flowers. And he meets Aerith for the second time. Because actually in the beginning, He's running through the streets, escaping the first Mako reactor explosion, and you bump into her.
Oh, I know. She's the flower girl,
right? The flower girl,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So at that point, you can buy the flower just like in the original, or whatever. I can't remember in the original why like you guys go your separate ways. I think she just runs away, or the soldiers come out and they're chasing you, or something like that. In this one, there's all these creepy ghost things, and they're like. They look. Do you remember Harry Potter, the Dementors?
Oh yeah.
They look like Dementors, almost to a T. They've got these billowy, flowy robes, and they just kind of spin around, and they're ominous, but they're not really doing anything. And then Aerith freaks out, and she runs away, and you don't see her until Cloud falls through their church, where she's growing her flowers. It's a big deal because flowers don't grow anywhere because the slums are inhospitable to like anything that is regular, natural life, because of the themes of the game and the story. And that's when the pacing for me dies a bit, because you're with Aerith and only Aerith for a really long time in the remake, when in reality it's just a really quick kind of jaunt through the slums where you fell to get back to your party before you go to the Wall Market section, which is like their Vegas crazy debauchery place. But in this game, you do another round of side quests, and if you do the side quests, it takes a long time, and there's just a lot of cutscenes, and it's just, that's for me when it starts to drag, because like I want to get back to Tifa, I want to get back to Barrett, I want to get on with the story, and this is just, there's really nothing here. And yet at the same time, it's really important that the player understands, that creates a connection between Cloud and Aerith. They have to have moments that make you feel for them and their relationship.
So let me ask you then. Yeah. So because do you think this is something that just bothered people who have played the original, or would this bother someone like me? And then how optional are those side quests? They're completely optional. You can just skip them and go straight to your main quest marker and move on with the story. So why didn't you do that? Because I wanted to, I hadn't done too many side quests yet, and I was just playing the game, and I was having a good time playing the game, but at the same time, by the time I got through them, I was like, man, I should have just not done those. So I could have it's hard to describe. So it's like one of those things where you start pulling the thread and you're like, this can't be that much longer. And then you're like, oh my gosh, well, I've got to finish it now. Kinda. And again, I hadn't had much, I'd done the previous set of side quests, and those were kind of dull, but not terrible. But at the same time, maybe they're just how side quests are in the beginning. And then it's like, oh no, this is how side quests are just going to be. And it's definitely one of the more lacking parts of the game. They just kind of threw it in there. Again, it's nice because again, it does breathe life into these areas that were normally just backdrops, and then you literally just walked through them. Maybe there was an NPC here or there, but now these are characters with names and, even their own mini backstories, and you're helping them achieve their goals, whether it's something dumb like, oh, find my cats, or kill this giant monster that's plaguing us in the graveyard, all those kinds of things. But I hate the find my cats quests. I hate those types of quests. Oh yeah, they're terrible. In every game, I'm just I don't want to help you with your menial task because I'm trying to save the world here. Yep. So, but for the most part, nothing major changes between the original game and this point. At some point, you meet Aerith's mom. Aerith's mom is like, can you please leave her alone? She doesn't need someone like you, someone from Soldier, ruining her life. And Cloud's like, yeah, that's fine. I really don't want anything to do with her. She's nice and all, but I'll leave. And then he tries to leave and she follows him. And so she's showing him the way back home. And then they run into Tifa, and Tifa is even more scantily clad than usual. And she's on some wagon. Heyo. And she's on some wagon heading towards this place. And that's when things finally start to pick up again. At the Wall Market, which is, again, they're Las Vegas in the slums. You go through this whole thing to try to save Tifa, because for some reason Tifa has put herself in harm's way to try to get some information, and you don't like the sound of that. And so Cloud's he's rushing in to save her. There's a whole series of little subquests, because you got to basically make yourself into a woman and make Aerith seem like a really, sexy prospect for this criminal, crime boss guy who's basically picking a new wife.
which is basically a sex slave. And they say, they don't use those exact words, but everything indicates that that's what's happening, which is what happens in the original. Cloud finds a dress, he finds perfume, you do all these goofy little fetch quests. And it's really fun in the original because it takes you like 20, 30 minutes tops. And this one, it takes a little bit longer. And there's all these new characters, and the characters are fun. But again, it just drags a little too long. And I didn't enjoy it enough to want to spend 2 to 5 hours there, which is I was in that area for somewhere in that amount of time. And so, like, again, the pacing, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, like, they picked an endpoint and they knew they wanted to make the game a certain amount of length. And so they did their very best. They did their very best to make it interesting the whole time. It just kind of falls short here and there.
Yeah. And that kind of brings me back to what I always say when people are probably tired of hearing me say, but like, this was a 30-hour game. Why not make it a tight 20?
Yeah, I agree. And then put the end content somewhere else. Like make the thing that they can spend another 10 to 15 hours at the back end if you want. And they do. There's a lot of, like, you can go replay this. You can go do the extra stuff and find all the weapons and get all the materia and fight the secret bosses and all that.
So, okay. So where does this game end though? Okay. So I assume you save Tifa, then what's...
Yep, so you save Tifa from the crime boss. The crime boss then reveals a huge piece of information, which is what Tifa was after, in that, because he has connections to Shinra. He doesn't work for Shinra, but he's got connections with them because corporations and mob bosses go hand in hand. And it turns out that the Shinra Corporation is going to drop one of the city plates on top of Sector 7. So the entire city has 2 levels. It has the actual, like, fancy part where, normal people live, and it has the slums underneath. And the fancy part is supported by these just gargantuan, metal, stone, concrete plates that hover above and block out the sun to everybody who lives in the slums. And they're going to intentionally drop one of those plates on top of Sector 7 and kill everybody in the name of, countering the avalanche terrorism. They're going to pin it on Barrett and his crew, but that's their goal. They're going to do that on purpose, using their CIA, secret agent guys. And then so once you save Tifa, it's this race back to stop them from doing that. Except that part takes like 3 hours. No joke. You have to go through some sewers. You have to go through this train graveyard. There's all these random ghosts. Why are all these ghosts here? It's this stupid little... And like the whole time, the characters know it's urgent. Sometimes in a game, something urgent's supposed to be happening and you can just go off and screw around on a side quest and it kind of like creates this dissonance. The game does that to you this time instead of you doing it to yourself. Yeah. Like Tifa's like freaking out. She's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. She's like losing her cool. And Aerith's like, oh, it's okay. We're going to save everybody. And Cloud's just trying to be, his regular self and be like, oh, it's okay, we're going to get through it. But it just takes so long. And it's a really important scene. And I don't see why we couldn't just gotten right to it.
What is it? So in contrast, what's the original? Like?
In the original, you go through a sewer and a train yard. It just doesn't take as long because it's not meant to take as long. Like the sewer is literally like 2 screens. You fight a boss when you get down there first because the mob boss, like, he's got you in a trap door and that's how you get in the sewer in the first place. You work through the sewer. You got to run through this train graveyard. And it's just another place that you walk through. In this one, they make a big deal because those ghost dementor things start showing back up again. And you're starting to think that, okay, these guys are important. They have something to do with this story. And they start showing you like visions and apparitions and Cloud's having these mental breaks where he's like seeing Sephiroth at various points in the game earlier and now and then later in the game. And it just takes too long. But eventually they get there. They get to the plate, the pillar that's holding it. And there's this big shootout going on with Barrett and Jesse and Jesse, Wedge, and Biggs are all on the pillar stairs thing. And they're fighting at different sections. And this is where you run up and you're fighting people along the way. And as you get there, though, Wedge drops from like the top of the pillar. And in the original one, this is where he just flat out dies. He dies in this moment because he just fell from 6 stories up. And it's kind of sad because, like, oh man, this guy that, we were helping out just a couple hours ago is dead. And you're crawling up the stairs again, and then eventually you run into Biggs. And Biggs is, he's been cornered in a firefight and he's dying. And you have this really moving moment with him, like a speech thing where he's like, oh man, we did some pretty bad stuff, but I guess this is what we got coming to us. And you keep going up the stairs, and then finally you get to Jessie, who saves you from something, but then she dies in the process as well. And it's all very sad and very moving. You get to the top.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, is this what happens in the original?
It's both.
Okay.
Except for Wedge, the fat guy.
Yeah.
He does not die right away. He is well enough to move on, but he can't fight anymore. So I think, what is it? I think Tifa sends Aerith to go get Marlene, and Wedge is supposed to show her the way, how to get to the bar and stuff. And so you go to the top of the pillar, and you have a fight with some bosses, the guys who work for the Shinra Corporation, and you're about to stop it, and then these ghost things show up again, and they stop you from stopping it. And you're like, why are these ghost things here? They weren't in the original. None of these ghost things are not in the original game. It's a very important point. The ghosts are not part of the original game. And then the pillar ends up falling and supposedly killing everyone. There's this terrible scene where, like, as it's starting to fall, you're seeing the destruction. It's cutting to people running and getting trapped under rubble. And Wedge has these cats that you see earlier on. He's given them cute names and everything. And, like, as the pillar's falling, it cuts to Wedge, and he's trying to scoop up his cats. And he looks up only to see the thing come crashing down on him.
Oh, man.
And it's like the worst thing ever. I was like, whoa, that was brutal. Aerith, in the meantime, she's being hunted by the Shinra Corporation because, haha, turns out she's this special lady. And so she makes a deal. She'll go with them as long as they leave Marlene alone. She somehow gets Marlene to her mom's house. It's never obvious how that happens. Presumably the Shinra just, like, take her in a helicopter and drop her off because they're evil, but they're not that evil.
I thought her mom was dead.
Whose? Aerith's?
No, Marlene's.
No, I'm sorry, Aerith's mom.
Okay, gotcha.
Aerith's mom, yeah. That's the deal. And so the three others escape, so Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett escape. They have no idea what's going on. Barrett thinks his daughter's dead. He's pretty much knows everybody else he knows and loves is dead because that pillar just crushed everything. Tifa knows that she sent Aerith, though, and so she's pretty sure that she got her there in time. Barrett's like, oh, that's the only hope I have now. We're going to get revenge on Shinra. And so now they have to go save Aerith. They find out from the mom, the Aerith's mom, that they did take her, and they have to go and get her. Man.
Okay, no, and so did they blow up the reactor already at this point in the second one?
Yeah, they did. They blew up the reactor.
Gotcha. Sorry.
And so this was like, they pin it on Avalanche as like a third act of terrorism, but this was just them trying to squash out Avalanche from messing up their plans even more.
Sure.
They weren't able to do it. So you spent a lot of time trying to get to the Shinra headquarters. You eventually get to the Shinra headquarters. It's a really fun sequence, and I'm starting to speed up here. But again, up until this point, let's see. The ghost things, have they revealed who they are yet at this point? I don't think so. But you get there, and you go through the Shinra headquarters. It's this fancy building, and it looks state of the art and really cool. And you have to get to the secret lab where Aerith's being held by Hojo, this evil mad scientist who just wants to dissect her and find out. Well, he doesn't want to dissect her right away, but he wants to find out what makes her tick, because it turns out she's this thing called an ancient, and they were the people that used to live on this planet, and they were all like, oh, we talk with nature and we talk with the planet and stuff, and we can use magic and all that. And you don't know what happened to him at this point, but she's like the key, they think, to this promised land where all the Mako energy is going to be, and they can make a new Midgar and be even richer, because apparently that's the only thing that matters to them. And it's just as like mustache twirly as it was originally at this point.
Except for now it's a little too real.
Except now it's a little too real, exactly. And so they eventually do find her, they reunite with her, and then you meet another character, and again, that's the Red 13. He is like this wolf tiger dog thing, and he can talk like a human. And at this point, Aerith touches him and conveys some knowledge to him about what these ghost things are. And it turns out the ghost things are the planet defending the timeline. And so now it's gotten very meta. So every time so far there's been an event in the game that was a little bit different from the original, these ghosts show up and they stop it from happening. Because apparently we are in a different timeline now, and Sephiroth is messing with things, and the planet is using its powers to defend itself via these ghost things. And that doesn't make a lick of sense, really. You're like you get this information, and you're like, I don't really understand what's going on still. But apparently there are time shenanigans going on, 4/5 of the way through this game. And Aerith knows this now. She's starting to talk to the planet. It seems it's not like obvious, but and yet at the same time, it's clear something's going on. She's starting to tap into her latent powers. And there's one thing, right? So at the very beginning, Aerith and Cloud meet, and they're about to go off together. But then the ghosts show up and they shove Aerith away because Cloud and her aren't supposed to meet yet. You're not supposed that's not supposed to happen until he falls through the church. And at some point, somebody gets carried, at the part where the pillar is going to fall. You're almost successful in stopping it, except in the original game, you don't stop it. And so the ghosts show up and prevent you from doing anything to the computer console to stop the plate from falling. And then it has to fall anyway. And so you keep going through the lab. You fight
to hear you explain it, that kind of makes sense, but could, in the moment, I could understand being.
It does,
totally,
but then why does the timeline need to be kept in the first place? Who's changing the timeline? You're like, why? What is this concept that never existed? And so you're going. There are these hints that Sephiroth is back in the city, except you would only really know that if you'd played the original. It's hinted at that somebody's back, and you're like, oh, who is it? It's like, oh, they're speaking in generalities and pronouns and stuff. And so you get to the top of the tower. You've saved Aerith. You get to the top of the tower. You're following this weird goopy trail because there was this giant thing in a lab in a tube. And then you see Sephiroth, but then you fall through this hole and you have to go through this really annoying dungeon thing. And then you follow Sephiroth up the stairs and you get to the president's office. Sephiroth's nowhere to be found. The president's nowhere to be found. The president of Shinra. And you go outside and he's hanging from this rafter thing. And then Barrett saves him, and he kind of gets to say his piece about what's going on. But then the president pulls out a gun. He's like, "Oh, you idiots! You fell for my blah blah blah." And he's got the gun pointed. And it's made of gold because, of course,
why wouldn't it be?
Exactly. He's pointing the gun at Barrett. He's got the drop on him, and then shunk, sword goes through his back, and Sephiroth's standing right behind the president. Everyone's in total shock. Does it happen like that? Something like that. I might be getting this mixed up a bit. And then all of a sudden, Barrett gets stabbed through the back. And this is the first major... Oh, I forgot to say, Wedge survives. Wedge survives somehow, and you find him later when you're navigating the underground rubble. And Wedge does not survive in the original. So that was the first major kind of but at the same time you could kind of be like, okay, well they just want Wedge to survive because they want a touchstone from the beginning of the game to kind of carry on through. And it's not that significant, but then Barrett gets stabbed through the chest, and Barrett never gets stabbed through the chest by Sephiroth. When you get to the president's headquarters or the president's office in the original, he's already dead. The sword's just sticking out of him there at the table. And you're like, it had to be Sephiroth, but he's nowhere to be found. And the president's just already dead. So Sephiroth comes in, he kills the president, he kills Barrett, or at least, you think he did, and then the ghosts show up again. And this whole time Sephiroth's making crazy conversation with Cloud. Cloud doesn't know what's going on, nobody knows what's going on. The ghosts show up, and then they heal Barrett, because Barrett's not supposed to die. And they want everything to happen as it's supposed to. And at that point I'm like, what the heck is going on? Why are they doing these weird rug pulls? President's son shows up. He's like, this is my business now. Cloud fights him. It's a really cool fight, but it's over really quick. I love that character. Rufus Shinra is really awesome in the original, and it looks like they're going to make him even better in this one. But as soon as he shows up, he's gone. You escape on a cool motorbike while everyone else is in a truck. You fight this boss while you're on the motorcycle in this kind of slashy minigame thing. And that's where originally the Midgar portion ends. You fight this like giant robot boss on the highway in a regular battle, and then you guys leave Midgar with the goal being, let's chase after Sephiroth and kill him, because why not? You're actually not even sure why you want to kill him in the original. You just do because he's a bad guy, I guess. Like, it's not very clear. It comes clear soon why Cloud hates him so much, but that won't happen until the next game in this new remake. Except, so in this one, instead of that being the end, Sephiroth is at the end of the bridge, and he starts making all this gobbledygook conversation about time again. And then he walks into this giant storming purple portal that he just created out of nowhere. And Aerith starts giving this really kind of like in the know speech about how he's wrong and nothing about this is right. We need to fight against fate to blah, blah, blah. It's very, very anime, very bombastic, because they felt like they had to create something at the end of this to make it worth people's time. They couldn't just end and now they're done, because it is kind of a fart of an ending if you just end it that way. Except what they did was so much more than they needed to. So you go into the portal, and there he is, and there's more ghosts, and it's very Kingdom Hearts. This is where Nomura and all his Kingdom Hearts nonsense is really shining through. Like, you're in another dimension, basically. You're in a time between time, space and time, and all that stuff. And you fight all these ghost spirits, and you fight this gigantic ghost spirit, and then you fight Sephiroth, because apparently you have to fight Sephiroth. In the original, you don't even see the guy. You don't see him once in the same amount of time. Like, before you leave Midgar, you never see Sephiroth. Not once. In this one, you see him at the very beginning in Visions, you see him throughout the other parts in Visions, and then he finally shows up, like, quote unquote, in person. He stabs Barrett, he stabs the other president, etc. You beat the big ghost boss, and then then that gets you out of this weird time portal thing. And then meanwhile, you're getting these flashes of this other guy from another Final Fantasy VII game called Crisis Core, which is a prequel that explains how Cloud got the way he is and got the Buster Sword and all that stuff. And at the end of Crisis Core, the main character, Zack Fair, dies. It's really moving. It's really cool. He does it to save Cloud's life. It's awesome. So they're showing that scene at some point, like through all the stuff I just explained. At some point, there's a flashback, timey-wimey vision thing. And they show that scene where he's about to die. And then after you beat everybody, they show the scene, except he's not dead. And he picks up Cloud, and he walks to the city, because they're just outside of Midgar in the past. And the handler's like, all right, we did it. Now we got to get back to town or whatever. And this little chip bag floats by, and there's this character on it, except that you'd seen earlier in the game. It's like this mascot, like brand thing, except it's a different character mascot, implying that whatever you're looking at is a completely different timeline from the original. Except now you've killed the things that were keeping the original time in place.
Why did you do that? That's the thing I don't understand.
I don't either. Somehow, Sephiroth, who is killed in the original, big spoiler. Oh no, the bad guy dies. It's like, it's not that big.
It's a spoiler cast. It's fine.
Exactly. But like, you could assume that somehow future Sephiroth has acquired time traveling manipulation powers, but he doesn't have ultimate power over time, obviously. Otherwise he would just do whatever he wants. He needed to destroy this defense system the planet has. And he creates this scenario in which by fighting you in this weird time dimension, you're actually fighting they call them the Arbiters of Fate, and you kill, presumably, I think I have this right, but basically you kill the things that are preventing the timeline from changing. So from now on, it's anybody's guess what's going to happen. All bets are off. This is no longer just a straight up remake. This is like Final Fantasy VII Part 2.
Yeah, this is Final Fantasy VII on crack.
It's basically Final Fantasy Endgame, as it were.
Don't spoil Endgame for me, because I have not seen it.
I know. This would be easier to explain if it could. And so it's a really big deal that Zack is alive. Like, I cannot stress enough how big of a deal it is. Zack is Aerith's old flame. Like, they were, he was her boyfriend. And she mentions him in the original as like a passing thing. Like, Cloud's going to go through some really big mental hoops, basically. He doesn't think he's Zack, but he thinks he had Zack's life because of some things that happened to him around the time that Zack dies and Zack saves his life. He's going through this big mind screw, and he kind of forgets who he was and who he is, and at the same time kind of gains some of his powers through what happened to him. And I'm not skipping this because I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I'm just skipping it because I just do not have enough time to get into it. But it's really important that Zack is dead to the original story because Cloud kind of thinks he's Zack. He still thinks he's Cloud. He still remembers Tifa from his childhood. But there are these hints along the way in both the original and the remake where Tifa's like, the things you're saying, Cloud, don't make sense. And the facial expression she gives is like, that's not right. I didn't see you 5 years ago, or I saw you more than 5 years ago, or whatever, and all these kinds of things. And so now he's alive. So what does that mean for anything anymore? I have no idea. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of wish we were filming this week. We talked about potentially doing a test run next week of filming, because like my facial expressions the entire time, I was very confused but like intrigued, and yeah, wow, that's I mean, it sounds really cool to hear you tell it, but it does sound like that there were some potential pacing issues. But I just, not being a fan of the original, I think this is really cool what they've done.
It is cool. So at first you don't know what to make of it, because like so much of this game is so good and true to form. And again, like this perfect translation of old to new, and the things that are different are not changes. They're just additions. You know, they enhance rather than alter, except for a couple things here and there, like when Wedge is alive, and it's like, and the way certain people might come in and out of the story, or there's brand new characters. But it isn't until like the final hour and a half where things just go bonkers, and like the rug is pulled out from under you 100%, and you don't know what to expect anymore. And it's like, it's very meta. Like, you know, people have compared the ghost spirit arbiters things to fans. Like, those are the fans telling the developers, don't change the game, keep it the same. And the developers are the characters, and they're like, no, we want to make something new. We have to forge a new path.
Wow.
And it's like, it's remarkably well done.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, go ahead. Sorry.
No, if you just look back on it, and like some people are getting a little too far into like what's very common, especially a long running series that has a lot of stuff that you can call back to. There's a lot of hints about what could be happening or what could still happen, just based on like the way a piece of music might play. Like, oh my gosh, that was from Advent Children, which is a movie that takes place after Final Fantasy VII. You know what that means? Blah, 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 blah. These kinds of things. And those could be true. Like, they might be right. Or it could just be a thematic representation of something that has no like actual narrative significance. And so those people are like, they're on Cloud Cuckoo land. But all the stuff that you can claim is definitely clearly happening because you watched it play out in front of your eyes. It's actually really well done.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of do you remember when, oh geez, I feel like I'm gonna butcher this, but here's a Kotaku article about it. It says that the time Kojima deceived everyone about Metal Gear Solid 2's protagonist.
Yes.
Okay. So this kind of reminds me of that a little bit, because I feel like Square definitely marketed this game as like a remake, just a remake of the original. That's, I feel like, what everybody expected. And I feel like somehow they managed to keep this under wraps enough that everyone's expectations were subverted a little bit, for better or worse, depending on what your takeaway from it was. But I do remember listening to someone talk about that Metal Gear Solid fake out, and they were like, something like that could never happen again in today's like social media, kind of the way we're at with everything and how connected we all are. Like, you can't keep a secret like that. But I feel like this is that big because they're just like, they're totally making it this other thing. but they had you for 28 hours thinking that it was a 1-to-1.
Yeah, pretty much.
So now I feel like they can do whatever they want to with the rest of it, honestly, because of this timeline thing. Like, maybe the rest of it's not even following the same storyline at all. Maybe the rest of it's just a trilogy.
It will be the way that they're able to condense it. Like, I am still really concerned with like how many games we're going to get or how long it's going to take them to get the next 2 out to us, assuming it's a trilogy, which I'm going to assume this is a trilogy for now, because to do anything else is you are getting into Kingdom Hearts territory, and that didn't turn out well for them. Like, that was not a good idea to make that many games and spread it out over that long of a time.
Well, not to mention to make it on that many different platforms.
That's a separate thing.
Where they were exclusive to those platforms.
Right. And I mean,
technically, a mainline game on the 3DS.
oh, Kingdom Hearts. But yeah, like, so, and there are conflicting things because it's Japanese, translated to English, and it could be some guy saying something that's not accurate, or it could be somebody not talking to somebody else. But like, they've said that even though some things have clearly changed, without spoiling it to people who haven't played, the developers and producers, they're still going to try to stick to the main beats. You're still going to go to the next town that you would normally go to. You're still going to. So, big spoiler. It's so funny. You're always out walking on eggshells. It's weird to talk about huge spoilers. Aerith dies in this game pretty early on. Not like the first third. Maybe the first 2/3 of the game.
In the original.
Okay. Correct. There's this scene. You're in this like really ancient place where the ancients used to live. You're chasing Sephiroth around because at this point his goal is to use a meteor to destroy the entire Earth. He's hooked up with this extraterrestrial being that was kept in the lab called Genova.
I gotta keep you straight here. This is in the remake.
What?
I said I gotta
keep in the remake. I'm talking about the original.
There were ancients in the original?
No. They went to a place the ancients used to live.
Gotcha.
It's the only ancient left alive at this point is Aerith.
And this is in the original?
Original, yeah.
Okay, but I thought the ancients were the ghosts.
No, the ghosts are something new in the remake. So Mako is basically what happens when you pull out this thing called the life stream, which is the lifeblood of the planet. And the life stream is made out of the souls of everybody who's ever lived. And like, it's this cycle of life thing. Like, you die, your soul goes to the life stream. That life stream allows for new life to be created, and new souls and new people are born out of it. Basically, it's that key ingredient to life, essentially. And it just keeps going back in circles.
Okay, so to be clear, there were ancients in the original.
Yes, in the
and that is a totally different thing from the ghosts.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay,
the
I'm
ghosts
on board.
And the ancients are not the same thing. The ghosts are just the planet. They're the souls of the planet, the soul of the planet. It's just like this autonomous, robotic-esque, quote-unquote, defense mechanism. Like, again, like Sephiroth is messing with time. The planet is somehow, savvy to that, and so it's trying to stop it. But that's really all the details you get. Okay, time is being screwed with, and the ghosts want to stop that.
Okay, so circle back. Aerith dies in the first third of the original game.
Right, so there's this whole idea that Sephiroth has a certain amount of control over Cloud. You don't know why until things are explained later, but like as you come to a head at this part, there's this scene, Aerith's like praying in this pond thing, and Cloud's walking up to her all creepy, and there's this kind of like goofy but also creepy scene where like you've lost control of Cloud, so to speak, and every time you press a button, he takes a step closer to her. He's like raising his sword, and then he's like shaking his head, like he's like, "What am I doing?" Like it's all nonverbal. There's no text, there's no anything. It's just music and the gameplay happening, and then it switches to a cutscene. Sephiroth drops from the sky and just impales Aerith with his sword, which is like 10 feet long. No joke. It's literally that long.
Wow, impressive. Compensating much?
Exactly.
I think so.
And so it's like, one of the biggest moments in gaming history. Like, Aerith is a party member. Like, she's a party member up until that moment. And Final Fantasy characters have had some people die before, but they've always come back. Aerith does not come back. There's no cheap, like, oh, I was alive in the live stream the whole time. And the rest of the game, as far as Cloud is concerned, is dealing with that death. I think and this is just me getting into fun speculation, hot take things, I think Cloud's going to kill her. I don't think Sephiroth's going to be the one to do it anymore. I think Cloud's going to kill her. I don't know if he's going to do it on purpose or not. He's either going to be controlled, and it's going to be really, sad that, Sephiroth made him do it with his own hands. Or for some reason, Aerith is going to know the future, and she's going to know her death is necessary, and she's going to make Cloud do it, which would be even more heartbreaking.
Oh, yeah.
And I hope they do it that way. And if Aerith doesn't die for some reason, they're going to kill Tifa instead. Those are my thoughts on the subject of the big death scene that,
Yeah.
So
I like
I
it.
don't think this game, Sephiroth gets defeated. That's still going to happen. The manner of his defeat will be different. And then the outcome of his defeat will be different, because this kind of implies that the original timeline is like the bad one, kind of. I think that's how they're going to play it. Like, oh yeah, you guys technically stopped Sephiroth from destroying the planet with a giant meteor, and things were okay for a little while, but it turns out that wasn't the right way to do it, and now we have to do it the right way. Like, it's going to come full circle. We'll see. It might not be good, but it's going to come full circle.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really just overall cool. I'm excited to see what they do with it. To be honest with you, I'm probably not going to play it, and not because of the spoiler cast, and just because it's a 30-hour commitment that I don't want to make. So I can't wait to hear your spoiler cast on Final Fantasy VII Part 2. So I can figure out what happened and how the story continues.
To anybody who doesn't have time or a strong affinity to the series, but does have time to watch a YouTube video, go watch some Let's Plays, like ones where people aren't talking, where they're just playing through the game and showing the cutscenes. Like, hopefully they're not doing too many side quests, but it's worth seeing and experiencing, and then maybe playing again or playing the second one when it comes out, if it really kind of speaks to you. But I'm just going to say that I love Barrett. I think he's a great character. I was going to go more on this, but I think out of all the existing characters, they did the best by him, because he's still kind of a caricature, and he's still just a teensy bit racist, but he's not nearly as racist as he used to be. Not as racist as he was portrayed. And just the way that he cares about his friends, he cares about his cause. Every scene with him and his daughter is just like, ugh, that gets me right here, because I have a tiny daughter and she's super cute. And, it's cheap, but it works on me because, that's how I feel. But even in this small amount of time that we're with Barrett, because he's actually not in a lot of the first part of the game, and they handle that kind of strangely. That's why they stab him, by the way, because at no point are you allowed more than 3 people in your party, but they don't let you choose who's in your party at any point either. And so with the part Barrett gets stabbed is the part where you would have to make that decision. They have to come up with a reason that Barrett can't go into the next fight, basically. And so I think that's really why they stabbed him. They took him out of commission narratively, so they wouldn't have to come up with a reason why he wasn't joining the fight. And then afterward, they healed him, and it's like, oh, everything's fine now.
Yeah, so, that's one way around it.
Pretty much. But yeah, it's so you get 4 people, and then you get the Red 13 guy who's a dog, and he joins you for the fight, but he never actually, you can never control him. He's always this AI controlled character. And I'm very curious how they're going to handle when they add, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 more characters to add who stick with the game, who stick with the party for the entire game. And they all get introduced pretty quickly, after everybody leaves Midgar. So I'm very interested to see how they're going to handle something they didn't even kind of broach in this game. I thought we would see it, but because at the end you have 5 different party members, but you're only allowed 3, but then they just kind of skirt their way around it with cheap story tricks.
So how do they do it in the original in terms of who goes into battle?
It's just like any other JRPG. The assumption is that the party is with you. You just only get to take 3 people into battle. It's a bit of a disconnect from the gameplay.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So why can't you pick? They could do something where you have an order of the party. It sounds like they already have some sort of system for that. And
they don't though. They do with the 3 people, but they just did not. They did not incorporate the idea that you would have to make a choice. They made the choice for you.
You just make a party leader, though.
Correct. Yeah.
I gotcha.
And then in battle you can swap through everybody. like you could in the demo.
Okay.
Yep. So I did. I liked it a lot. Overall assessment is I liked it a lot. I would like to play it again. I know I said that afterward, and you said you were going to stop being my friend.
I did say that because you need to stop doing this to yourself.
Guy, I haven't replayed a single game this year. I said I wasn't going to replay. I wasn't going to play anything I'd beat or played before for the most part, and I have kept my word.
Okay, but you only made it like a quarter through the year, and you're already talking about doing it, and you skirted the rules by doing Fire Emblem, which you got pretty close to beating, and then you pretty much like restarted it, right?
Yeah, that's because I was more like halfway through.
Okay.
No, I was pretty close. I was like 2 chapters away, it turns out.
Oh my gosh.
But I didn't know that.
Why don't you could look that up. You can look that sort of thing up.
I don't like to do that. Besides, I had lost all momentum, and like I didn't know who was good at what anymore, and I just wanted to start over.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my spoiler cast. Turns out I'm really bad at spoiler casts. It's really hard when you're the only.
Why? I thought it was great spoiler cast, but I mean I don't listen to them, but I liked that one.
Oh, well, as long as you enjoyed it. But like it's hard when you're the only person who's played it in the conversation.
Well, I see what you're doing here. You're blaming it on me.
I'm not blaming nothing. I appreciate you listening to all of that. There's so much I didn't go over. Like
I'm sure it'll pour out of you at some point. You're not going to be able to not talk about this game again.
I would like to take a break from talking about it on the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Like now, immediate break, or just like a break, like don't talk about it next episode.
Next episode or two. I want to talk about combat real quick. So combat is cool. If you've played it, seen it, you know what it's about. But there's a lot of room for improvement. Like it's a pseudo action game. Like you're moving around and you're like controlling attacks on a per button press moment. And yet at the same time, so much of what happens is out of your control. Like enemies are never interrupted by your actions, and you're constantly interrupted by their actions. And it's really irritating to start an ability, and then the enemy just like flicks a wrist and they just throw you halfway across the screen. Rolling is completely useless. It has no purpose whatsoever. I don't know why it's in the game, because it makes you think you can dodge an attack, except then the hitbox is like 4 times larger than you think it is. And you just get wailed on it. There are too many fights where the boss or group of enemies are like, oh, it's going to take you like four times longer to beat us if you don't have the right materia equipped. And there's a lot of materia, and you might not have it equipped. And so either you have to slog through it, or just kind of like force restart the game. Not the game, but the battle, because it'll send you right before that encounter, and then you can swap your materia out. But like you shouldn't have to do that. So you need to make the enemy weaknesses different, or you have to have like some way to let people change their loadouts either in battle or like just prior to like a major fight, because it's just not fun anymore. Then it just becomes like clench your teeth into like crack irritating. Aerial combat is a joke, and yet there are way too many enemies that only fly around in the sky, so you're either limited to these really quick, like the characters will like jump up to meet them, but you can't do any of your special abilities in the air, so all you can do is like hack at them twice before they fall back to the ground. Or you can cast spells, but in order to get the action bars to use the spells, you gotta attack the enemy, and so then you're forced to jump up in the sky and slash at them twice and fall back down. It's stupid. I don't know why they did it that way. Yeah, so there's a lot of improvement to be done in the combat, in the pacing, especially. I think they should just cut the side quest stuff out or retool it, because side quests are a big thing in Final Fantasy VII, but they're not how you would traditionally expect a side quest to be like it is in modern games, and I don't know how you translate it to modern games. They were very organic. You'd be in a town, you'd talk to some rando guy, and he might mention something, and if you follow him up on it, it might be nothing, and if you go to a place that he talked about, there might be something, and that might lead to another thing, and so forth and so on. Whereas in this game, it's just like it's just a task list. There's people in a group, they all have a question mark on their head, that kind of thing.
I hate that. That's one thing I loved about. I know I'm going way off here, but like. And I it's like I can never go an episode without talking about Skyrim and The Witcher. but that kind of follow the breadcrumbs, might be something, might be nothing. Like, I love that aspect, and I feel like those implementations of it are so much better than when it feels like inorganic, like you're describing.
Yeah. All right. And spoilers here.
Okay, great. I'll worry about time codes later.
Yeah, sure.
So we are going a little over here.
We're
about like 2-hour mark. Do we want to save questions for next time, or do you want to hit like one quick one, or what do you want to do?
Let's just do them both.
Okay. Yes. You know what? We'll just have a long episode. Who cares?
Maybe we'll skip the bet.
No, I'm calling him one way or the other, but we can skip.
Yeah, we got to find out if he's the worst or not.
Well, the funny thing is his work schedule changed recently. So if I'm not mistaken, he's off tonight, technically.
That is funny, which means he's sleeping.
But I don't know if he is or not, because I don't know which way he flipped his sleep schedule.
Oh, he's sleeping.
I haven't talked to him in, 3 or 4 days, so I really don't know if he's awake or not.
All right. Let's do some questions, and then we'll call your brother.
Okay, cool. You want me to read it since you've been talking?
Yes, please.
Okay. This one is from Sean. He writes, "Hey, fellas. Really enjoyed the podcast earlier in the week. Kind of settled on not playing Final Fantasy VII Remake given the feedback. Maybe he'll listen to the Spoilercast and change his mind.
Maybe.
That said, glad to see you've both been having some time to game, especially with a chunk of it being Pirates and D&D. Question for the week. What series are you most looking forward to having or most wishing for a sequel? And on the flip side, what series do you think can stay finished? Take care, Sean."
Great question, Sean.
Yeah.
Something I've thought about before. Jason, why don't you start us off? Okay.
So one that I absolutely can't wait for is definitely the follow-up to, I think it was 2016's Ratchet and Clank. I absolutely loved that game. It had so much charm. It had so much character. It gave me this like vibe like I was playing The Incredibles. I love the art style. I love the combat system. I love the weapon systems.